Hey guys, so today I want to talk about my web dev workflow and how it's evolved over the last few months. So I took a class on AWS in the spring of 2025, and that's really why I ended up using AWS a lot. So that here I am in my AWS console. I have Elastic Beanstalk and stuff. And AWS is infrastructure as a service. It's good for enterprise, but uh, it takes a lot of time just to set up simple things, like set up a if I set up a whatever, like a beanstalk, say here, then it takes a long time. If I set up and go to App Runner, for instance, then uh, it took me an entire week to get this set up, to get a backend service set up, and it didn't even work at the end of the day. And also very expensive. Let's take a look at the billing and costing management. This is a fluke here, but basically I've been spending $50 to $100 a month just on AWS and taking a long time to set up. And sure, it's good when you actually know what you're doing, but really, I don't know what I'm doing, so that's fine. So basically, I looked at other options. So I looked at platform as a service options. So let me hear. I started with DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean's pretty good. But I found it has these things that kind of in between a platform as a service and an infrastructure as a service. It has things called droplets, which are kind of like AWS Lite. But I didn't really like the UI, and I thought it was just too complicated. So Mark, my stepdad, has good suggestions from people that have used it. So I continued on and I ran upon Railway. So Railway is the one that I liked. So let me just give you some context here. So I was building here three apps, right? It basically started as seven apps. I have this website project where you can see all the apps that I built, but it consolidated into three main apps, two static apps, Thrive Thursdays and the Coco Map, and then also a full stack application on something called on the Federal Transit, which I call it the Farebox. So yeah, and originally I used Netlify to host some of the static sites. Netlify is good for static sites. It's the king, and it has a CDN and it said your CDN there and stuff. So here's my Coco map, and it actually just redirects the Coco map from this. But anyways, it's pretty good. It has analytics built in, so you can take a look at what the analytics are here. So it looks like last day I haven't gotten a lot of views. Anyways, that was kind of before I was getting more views. But yeah, Netlify is good for static sites. But the problem was that I wanted to have all these three sites on a single dashboard to basically reduce my cognitive overload. And I was having a full stack application was there as well. So Railway here is very nice. I really like it. So here you have a dashboard view. As you can see all three projects right just here. And then if you click on one, say Coco Map, then you have like basically a canvas view where you see all the services. Services are front ends, back ends, databases. This is simple because it just has a front end, but you can have a production and you can have a staging. So that's cool. So you have one for production, one for staging, and you just go in here, look in what the URL is, and just copy it over, and then here you have it. This is my Coco map, and so this Coco map has not all the data; it has just the demographic data here. The staging, on the other hand, if you go here to the staging environment, if you go here and you copy over the URL, this has not just the demographic data, but it has economic data. So that this is kind of like the new and released kind of version. So this is nice. You can just drop down and show the environment. The same thing I had for Thrive Thursday. Thrive Thursday, you can also look at production and staging, and right now they're just in sync. And then the other thing is for Farebox, which is my last application. You can see that there's three services: front end, back end, and database. Here it's crashed because I did something, but don't worry about it. You can see them all kind of go up. So this is really nice about a Railway. And also the pricing. Let's take a look at the pricing. The pricing is very affordable. So if you take a look at our project usage, I've only spent $6 this month. it's a pay-per-use model, so not like some others have different, but you're not using that much. And most of it is, you take a look at it, is Farebox. So you could I'm using a lot of money for the full stack application because of it has a MySQL and a database. Um, but that's okay. We're learning. So I mean, if you wanted to optimize, you could just get rid of this and focus on these two. Now, Netlify is kind of free with these versions. Free CocoaMap would end up just being almost 0 cents. Here it's 32 cents. So if you really care too much about the actual pricing, then you can do that. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about is, now here I have something called the mission control. So let's take a look and see what we have here. So right now, mission control, this shows you basically a view of all the 3 projects I'm working on, the production and staging URLs. And one thing I want to mention here is that I have Railway is the host machine, but then I have, for DNS and analytics, I have Cloudflare, and for domain registration, I have Namecheap. So let's take a look at Cloudflare. Cloudflare, here I have the analytics, so you can just quickly see your analytics at a bird's eye view for all 3 projects, which is kind of nice here. Let me take a look, and it just loads up. And so you can see here, wow, Thrive Thursdays, a lot of unique visitors. Well, let's take a look and see what exactly is going on here. So we go here to analytics. Now we go to the web analytics, and what happens here is that the actual number of visits for the previous 24 hours is 0. Let's take a look at the previous 7 days. Yeah, so 13 visits, it's a reasonable amount. But what happens here is the HTTP traffic shows a lot of bots. So that you can see bots coming from Japan and India and stuff. So this is a very nice tool to see how well your website's doing, and all the 3 websites have this. Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about my project management. So how am I doing project management? So first of all, I didn't really need project management because I was just doing things, putting them in my head. But that doesn't work very often. I would work on my dad's project, and he would give me a recommendation to use, and I wanted to remember and not have to have that in my mind. So let's go to here. Let's go to repositories. So let's look at the Contra Costa map. So the Contra Costa map, if you open this up, you have here on the upper hand side, you have some things. You have issues. So basically what happened is my dad had an issue, and let's take a look at one of the issues that he had. He has user experience, and basically he says some stuff, and I write it down, bullet points. And then what I do is I give it a label, bug, and then I basically work on it. And yeah, this is working pretty well. So I had 3 projects for the Cocoa Map, the Thrive Thursdays, and the Farebox, and I was adding issues here, and that was working pretty well for a while. And then what happened was, I wanted to coordinate my tasks across all 3 projects. So issues weren't really doing it for me because they were not one centralized place to do it. So what I ended up doing is using something called Github Projects. So if you click here on Github Projects, I have one project. I guess here you can't see it. So let's take a look and see where that project is. Maybe here's an issues. If I go back to John Joy's user experience, and then I go to, maybe not here, the projects. Here it is, projects. So if I go to projects, I have a list of all the tasks between all 3 projects to do. And this is kind of like one view. It's basically a table view. But what's really nice is that you can go here, you can change this to the board view, and then you can change this to swim lanes to priority, and you can see all the things that you're working on and sorted by priority. So here's P2, which is a moderate, and then here's P3, which is low, and here's P4, negligible. And basically, you these are the to-dos on the left-hand side, and you basically drag them over here to be in progress. So right now I have something called suggestions, which are basically writing stuff for my dad, and this is already done, so I can just go ahead and move it over here. And so that's really nice because across all 3 projects, you can just have like a board of just working with these things. So that's about all I have. That's about all I have. So for my IDE, for my integrated development environment, I started out using. I've been doing a lot of vibe coding, especially on the front end, back end a little less so. But I started out with what is it called? Is Claude Code, but I've ended up using Cursor. Cursor I think is better because it puts everything all in one. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And I've been pushing to a staging environment. Oh, one last thing is that I've been having pull requests. So let's go back here. So you notice, let's go to Contra Costa map. This is my dad's website. So here you have pull requests. So I've been making pull requests. So I push to staging branch, then I open a pull request, and right now here's the pull request, and it does some checks to see it's all right. And then when you're done, you merge it, and that basically merges from the staging environment to the production environment. And so basically you have a GUI to do this, and you can have other people like Doris or Mark review these changes and see if they're good before actually going and committing. It's a kind of a lightweight way of doing it. Versus, I'm not a DevOps person. I don't need to do the whole complicated stuff, but this is pretty good. So that's my web dev workflow. And yeah, hope you enjoy.